And now I'll have the pleasure of inviting someone that had the worst incident ever. And I want to ask Tim Brown, the CISO of SolarWinds. When I tried to explain to my kids that I'm on stage with Tim Brown, I told them, imagine that you are a soccer fan and you have to play with Messi. Imagine that you are a basketball player and this is Michael Jordan on stage with you. For CISO geeks, for security geeks like ourselves, it's being with the Messi of cybersecurity. Tim Brown, CISO of SolarWinds. Tim, let's dive immediately into, first of all, everybody say to Tim Brown, Mazal Tov, Mazal Tov. Tim Brown, after 4 years, 5 years of, I can say, because I used to be a lawyer, of ridiculous, unbelievably stupid process with the security authorities, finally done with the process when SEC dropped all charges.
With prejudice.
With prejudice. But the one thing actually that they cannot return to Tim Brown is the one heart attack and 25 pounds that he lost at the beginning.
That did come back.
Tim, tell us, take us 5 years back. You were actually in the worst incidents ever. The Russian actually, state decided to take advantage of your company in order to do a supply chain attack on many, many organizations. Can you take us in 2 minutes to this date and kind of like what you felt as a CISO, and what is the one thing you do as a CISO when you realize you're in the midst of the largest global attack?
Yeah, so December 12th, so 2020, coming up, 5-year anniversary. The team that met, we actually meet every December 12th. That's our foxhole group, because it really is such an emotional time and event. So you're completely surprised by this. We got a call from Mandiant. So Kevin Mandiant called our Kevin Thompson, said, you guys ship tainted code. That was the message. And it was going to be going public by Sunday. And so we had 2 days to respond, or a day to respond, essentially. And that also our communication system was compromised, so email was compromised. So all this occurs on like Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And we had to get everybody together. We had to figure out what it was. We had to figure out whether it was real. They gave us decompiled code. So figuring out it was real took probably 20 minutes. It was not a long time to figure out that it was real. So now it's real. Who did it affect? How many people? Are they still in our back end? Interesting, we found that they didn't attack our source code system. They attacked our build supply chain, essentially. So source was never in anywhere, but it was in product.
Can you, Tim, you told me once, can you name kind of like how many clients were affected by this attack? Yeah. And a little bit of the names of these clients.
Yeah, so 18,000 had downloaded. So with 18,000 companies across the globe downloading. And we didn't know how many were affected. We didn't know how many were targeted. We didn't know how many were negatively affected at that point in time. We simply knew the code was tainted. This is the payload that was there. It got to the customers.
So what are the customers?
Everyone, right? I mean,
name us few.
So every military of the world, then every large corporation of the world. We count 499 of the Fortune 500 as our customers.
What could happen to them?
So what could have happened to them if the Russians cared about them, they would have been attempted to move laterally from that box, that Orion box. That was what they were after. So because of the payload that was put down, it required connecting to a command and control server, required the SVR to care about them, and it required the ability to attempt to move laterally. We know 4 government agencies of the US were affected negatively. We don't know how negatively it was affected.
Tim, you're the CISO at this point of time.
Yep.
Have you ever prepared for this minute that you are under actually the largest cyber attack ever by the Russians, and now you are actually running the show?
So No, right? What we anticipated, seriously, was that potentially a vulnerability could have been there that would have done something, right, in the code. We didn't anticipate somebody breaking into our back end and changing our code and having us be a route to others. So we had some anticipation. But from a response perspective, right, when you think of it from a response perspective, we've done thousands of little ones, right? A vulnerability in the product we treated as an incident, but nothing of this scale. We had good relationships with our folks, but we had never been through this type of thing.
Have you ever met before with the people that came to help at the time of crisis?
Never met with these individuals. So DLA Piper came in, their cyber team, excellent. CrowdStrike cyber team, excellent. KPMG's cyber team, very good. But we had met with them before. So,
and would it make a difference if actually these people were forming a communication channel, a plan, a way to coordinate that you've met them before?
Yeah, absolutely. So it would have been interesting to understand what the playbook would have been, what we would have looked at. We were lucky. So when you're this big of an event, when you're this terrible of an event, when you're on the cover of every news outlet in the world on Sunday, you get the best of the best. Okay, so CrowdStrike, for example, B team on Saturday, Adam, who runs their cyber response team, Sunday, right? Best of the best. DLA is best of their best. So when you get the best of the best, you end up getting good guidance and help. But I didn't predict, we would split the team into 5 different groups and have each one having their own things that they would be focused on. So critical to a good response. I didn't understand that we needed better relationships with press. We took the route to ignore press because so much was coming at you. You can't waste your time on little lies or little misconceptions. Going back, I wish I did waste some time on those misconceptions.
But did you have something, even if you're saying about press, did you have a way to coordinate the messages, a single repository where everybody would go with the same messages? Everybody is trying to save the kingdom. Yeah,
so at this level of an incident, our old processes were not sufficient. What was sufficient was the processes that DLA brought in and that the people brought in. But we were so dependent on people and the best people that help with the guidance. We didn't have practice of it. We didn't have practice with those people. We didn't have clear guidance of what we were doing. We didn't have we hadn't practiced this playbook. Little ones, sure, but not this level of a playbook.
In retrospect, with all the insights that you have, if you were to build now the solution that you should have had when you had Sunburst, what pieces would you need? What elements would be critical to you? Yeah,
so absolutely technology that can help us practice and bring the right people in. More coordination between those parties because we were manually communicating without email, without Teams, without anything. So communications and an external way to coordinate. We would have brought in more process flow that had been tested for something like this as major as it was. Because again, when you're relying on people, that's a terrible thing to be doing. Because you have to remember, these people are like me, 0 hours, 2 hours of sleep every night, worst stress they've ever been under. And we're making decisions at that point in time for how we're going to move forward. So we're making those decisions under the absolutely worst period of time possible, but we're trying to do our best.
And another thing that I know that we talked about in the past, assuming that you had the best processes, how would these processes evolve when the incident changed? I'm trying to see how would you imagine technology change the way that you actually can respond to the way that crisis unfolds?
Yeah, so there's a lot of dynamics that are going on out here. So a lot of decisions that need to be made. What's our communications model going to be? Are we going to just be quiet? Or are we going to go out and talk to people? We couldn't find a choice, but we had to talk to people. Okay, what are we going to say to them? Are we just going to read a script? That's what Microsoft did for us. They read a script. Didn't feel human, didn't help. We decided to go off of that model and actually go out and communicate to everyone possible that we could about what went on, use it as a learning experience, bring people up to speed on, this is a nation state doing a thoughtful attack against us for a larger purpose. No one had done that before, so we wouldn't have that.
Even about bringing people to speed, one thing that I've seen in many incidents that I managed, not all people have the same situational understanding. Unless you're really good in coordinating this kind of like war room or situational understanding, people are operating on different beliefs of the crisis. How actually kind of like a central command and control, a place that you have all kind of like situational understanding in one place for everybody, that you have the disclosure, the messaging, the same kind of like artifact that you can go to the raw data for everybody. How would that change the way that you manage a crisis?
Yeah, I think having all the information together for everybody to be able to access would have been very helpful, because I didn't necessarily need to coordinate all of the legal material that was going, but I needed to know what was going out, right? I needed to know that we were and often on the case, why we had to stay up until 2 a.m. every night was reviewing material. So that material that was going out got reviewed. Would have been nice to just be able to go through a platform and say, yep, approved, right? Or yes, here's changes. Would have been nice to be able to see what our other components were doing and what was going to the FBI, what we were sharing out to the FBI, what was going on with CISA. So there's so many different moving parts. And although you may not be directly responsible for those, it's very important to understand what's going on as part of the team running it.
Another thing, given that you are the CISO and everybody expects you to run the show, but many elements of the show are not actually for you to manage. It's the legal, it's the PR, it's the business continuity. How did you coordinate with all of them, and kind of like how do you align with them to understand what's the role, what's expected for them, to know kind of like their responsibility?
Yeah, we got lucky, okay, and luck is always a bad thing to have during these things, but we got lucky. Our team worked well together. Different people had different scopes and kind of scopes, abilities, and responsibilities, and that became very known. And I don't know if we had documented it would be, but people who think the CISO runs this thing are completely wrong. Something of this scale that has the ability to shut down the company, the CEO is right on top of it. And every CEO I've ever dealt with sat at the first front of the table, especially with something that's going to destroy his company. So don't expect that not to occur. If it's a good CEO, they're going to ask questions. You'll be part of the team that is managing the response. It won't be the CISO managing the response. It will be part of the team.
But here maybe to the last point, given kind of like the importance of practice, I think I've spoken to a lot of lawyers, business continuity people. They say if it's a cyber incident, it's for the CISO to deal with. They don't know what's the role, what's expected. How do you actually make them understand what's the role, what is expected to them, how it's going to look like in real time, how decision would be taken? How do you change this dynamic that they believe mistakenly that the CISO will manage it?
Yeah, you have to practice. You have to do a tabletop. Those tabletops have to be real, right? They have to be well structured. They have to be able to point out what the role will be. Make sure, hey, CEO, we're going to make a decision on the business that's going to crush it. Who do you want to make that decision? We're going to make a decision on whether, this decision is either going to help the company survive or not. Who do you want to make that decision? And they'll quickly realize it's them. Legal. You want people, who do you want to be making those legal decisions? Communications.
My problem that I've seen many tabletop exercises, they tend to be some smart guy with the PowerPoint asking theoretical questions. How is that really testing vis-a-vis your threat model, your plans, your people, and your platforms?
So,
isn't an exercise should actually connect all these if you really want something realistically and to check how well you'll perform?
Last question. Time's up. So yeah, absolutely. You want to be able to coordinate those things and test them and make the tabletops real and do them often. So this isn't a one and done show. You want to be able to do those often so that you are prepared. It's not a joke, right? When something bad happens, the way you respond will determine the way the company comes out. So just for your sense of SolarWinds, right? SolarWinds had this event, could have shut us down. What happened was, our renewal rate went down to the 80s for a little while. It was in the 90s before. We were sold to private equity. Our renewal rate was at 98%, and our revenue was as high as it had ever been or more. So we survived this, and part of the reason why we survived was a good response.